Good evening, everyone. A successful marriage isn't the union of two perfect people. It's that of two imperfect people who have learned the value of forgiveness and grace by Darlene Sachet. How can two special needs people marry? By Linda Atwell, October 8, 2012. Questions like, should people with special needs marry? Do they have the capabilities to care for themselves or for another? Can they manage emotionally the responsibilities and difficulties of married life? All these questions and concerns are valid. The worry that these two special adults may lack common sense, not necessarily for average day-to-day scenarios, but for high-stress events or emergencies. And for people with special needs, those events could happen daily, or they may never occur. So do we forbid our young adults from living as normal a life as possible, just in case the unexpected happens? Or do we try and teach them how to better handle these situations? Who don't feel that their special needs child should date, marry, or live apart from them ever. They prefer to care for their child, never let them out of their sight. And this may be the right decision for that family. But I've wondered, do these parents worry who will care for their adult child when they are no longer able to? But they will start depending on someone other than us. And when all this parental support is gone, they will still have each other. We hope that they grow old together. The problem is whether or not your child is mentally challenged or mentally healthy. Whether you give him or her the gift of independence, you won't always agree with the decisions they make. Today, we have with us some special needs adults who met their soulmates and are happily married. All I can say to them is that you are very blessed to have found each other. To start this evening, we begin with Mr. Edward and Mrs. Dolly Carnero. Mr. Edward, 70, and Mrs. Dolly, 63, have been married for 38 years. Mr. Edward has been deaf since the age of 2, and Mrs. Dolly since 1 month of age. Mr. Edward was born and brought up in Pune, and Mrs. Dolly in New Delhi. Both are sports people and in fact first met at a sporting event. Mr. Edward excelled at long jump, high jump, and pole vault. He has represented India twice in the Silent Olympics during the 1970s. Mrs. Dolly played table tennis at national sporting events for the deaf. Both have received recognition and a number of awards at the state and national levels for their endeavors. Mr. Edward served as a quality assurance employee for over 33 years at the automotive company Telco Pune, and Mrs. Dolly worked for close to 20 years at the YMCA School for the Deaf in Pune. Mr. Edward and Mrs. Dolly have 2 children, Vijay, 37, and Kavita, 35. Kavita is a mother of 2. She is a filmmaker based in Pune and makes films for NGOs and corporates. Kavita will be our interpreter this evening. Thank you, Kavita, for being with us.
Most welcome, pleasure. Yeah.
1 minute. Okay. Kavita, we have a few questions for Mom and Dad.
Sure.
We understand both were sports people, and we'd like to know how they met. We understand they met at a sports event. How did they meet?
They had common friends, and there was word about there was somebody called Edward amongst the friends. So they told their common friends told them about each other. So
Okay. They set up a meeting.
to set up a meeting, and
Okay.
since they were both sports people, they met in Cochin. So my mother's from Delhi, father's from Pune, and they went for a sports event in Cochin, and
Okay.
that's where they met. That's where they met each other for the first time.
Oh, how nice. Okay. So they were far from home and family.
Oh, yes, very far. Yeah. They both were part of sporting clubs and clubs for the deaf, and they both came and met in Cochin. That's how it happened.
Okay, that's so nice.
Yes.
Okay. And since I understand dad is from Pune, he's always been from Pune?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, dad being a born from Pune and mom a Punjabi from Delhi must have been quite a meet.
My mother says that she was certain that she wanted to marry him. Initially her parents said that maybe it would be better to marry somebody who is hearing, a normal person. She insisted that that shouldn't happen because they won't understand what it's like to be deaf. So she wanted to marry a deaf person.
Okay. So did she have, was there any opposition as such? Did they, for dad's side too?
Dad's mother wasn't happy. She didn't want it to happen. Dad's father was supportive, and he said that he wanted them to get married. Mother's family both were all right, and they were okay. And they told her that she is responsible for whatever the choice is made. So she would be the one responsible if she makes this choice. So she would have to take on the responsibility of this. And she also, actually, she said that I'll be responsible. You don't worry about it. We'll work it out. That's what she's saying.
How wonderful. And things worked out well.
Yes. Yeah.
So they got married in Pune or Delhi?
Yes, in Pune.
In Pune itself. Okay. How long have they been in Pune?
So my mother came here after the wedding. So she 38 years, all through here.
Okay. What was the biggest challenge she faced after getting married? Both of them.
She said that nothing really seemed difficult. Nothing that was particularly difficult. She said work and finding work was an important thing, and if I think if she was she kept thinking about what work is required, thinking of the future. So finding work was an important thing, and that's no, they're both saying that no, there wasn't any real problems, nothing difficult. No, they're both all right. Everything was fine. Nothing that they were worried about.
Okay. How do they impart values, their beliefs to you? What was the challenge in it?
I think every time the government did it, I spoken clarity to spoken out work out challenging but acting right
She said education was
I think I spoke out after
education was an important thing, and keeping a close eye on us and making sure that we did well in our studies was important. I think my mother always told me to practice and never leave anything undone or unfinished. That is what I can say, what I've learned from them. I think sometimes it's hard for them to articulate exactly, but I know that that's what she's told me. Always practice. So practice is one of the big values that I've always heard from both of them. Keep at it. And be positive and always go ahead. That's what she's saying. Positive, go ahead. Yeah. And there is yeah. All hearing people are mostly progressing, and there is no reason that why we should lag behind. So we should always push ourselves to be better.
That is lovely. What, according to them, is the key ingredient in their marriage that have kept them together for 38 years?
They help each other and share the workload and share everything together, actually. So if she had something, the load was not only always on her. So if she had to do something like go to the market or cook, he would be a backup and manage the other half that required it. So the pressure was not on either of them. They supported each other and backed each other up.
Lovely.
I prepare that time to
yeah. And even when if people don't help, we still somehow stay together and find a way to be happy.
Wonderful. Kavita has made a little video about mom and dad, about their life together. I thought it was very, very sweet. And you said something very nice in that video. When you love something, you want to share it with the ones closest to you.
Yes.
How did mom and dad, when they saw that video, how was their reaction to that?
Very happy and very proud.
Wow.
If I succeed, the parents, if the child succeeds, the parents will always be proud. That's what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And she said it's very important that she always is positive and she's very happy. She's most happy that both of us have found a partner to live our lives with. We're married. Both her children are married. So that's one of the things that she's really happy about.
Wonderful.
next you can.
Sorry?
No,
Okay.
you were. She said my father says it was great to see that I had made something like that, and my mother said that she told everybody about it. So
Okay. Okay. Eh,
and she's and the fact that we all I mean, we as children understand and can communicate with what they are saying is what brings them happiness actually.
Okay. In that video, I saw your dad driving the bike with your mom. Yes, she drives a bike. And he still
Both of
drives the
them.
bike.
Both of them.
Oh, both drive.
Yeah, both ride. Yeah.
Oh, very good. That's lovely. But they're not worried about traffic and.
I can
Yeah, so you have to use your visual sense all the more and keep an eye on the mirrors.
Yeah, and the fact that on Pune traffic, everybody is deaf on the road, so it's all right. It's okay.
And she said my mother always takes the slow lane and is careful and rides in the slow lane.
That's good. And how are they with their grandchildren? How do they communicate with their grandchildren?
Yeah, because
they understand. I mean, my brother is yet to have children, so I have two kids. A girl who is 6, and my boy is 3. And they have learned that instead of calling out, that they should tap, so that they know that if they have to get my parents' attention, if the kids know if they have to get their grandparents' attention, that they have to tap and not call out and say grandpa and nani. So to tell you that my daughter has learned the alphabets in sign. She knows A to Z in sign.
Okay. How nice.
Yeah, and they know the signs, the basic signs for, like, food, water, out. They know. So they do sign back to them. It's easy to sign. That's what she said.
Okay, so they have got a rapport between the grandparents and the grandchildren now. They have been able to get along, spend time together.
Yes, more than get along. They're really important people in each other's lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And tell me, what message do they have to give the special needs community?
So there are what is important is to find they find support and a sense of community in things like clubs for the handicapped. There might be a club, like they found a lot of support in clubs for the deaf. There is a sense of community, and that you have some kind of group that you can discuss or share your issues with. My father says that the government does have a lot of benefits, so one should take advantage of those things. Government has benefits for handicapped people. And for the deaf, she would say that my mother's not really a supporter of cochlear implants, and would say it's just better to use an external hearing machine. and it doesn't really help to have the implant. She supports that you're deaf, you will learn to find a way to
Like,
yeah,
The world.
yeah, and you should be I wouldn't say happy, but this is what you are, so you will find a way to carry on with in the state that you are in. That's the natural state. So don't modify things and do a cochlear implant. That's what she's saying.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kavita. And a thank you to mom and dad too. I understand you have other commitments due to which you have to leave. A big thank
Sure.
you, sir, ma'am, Kavita, for being with us this evening. Really did appreciate your mom and dad sharing with us their journey and giving so much hope to the rest of us and the special need community that we can still all live a normal life. Thank you.
Yes.
that
And she says her last thing that she wants to say is that it's important that people learn sign language and know how to speak to people who are deaf and find a way to learn sign language. That's what she said.
Thank you so much, Kavita. Thank you to mom and dad.
Doctor Pepin Captain Indonesian Japanese. I can Pepin and
So, I mean, because people don't know the language, you don't get much help. That's one of the things that she's saying. So that's important that people make efforts to learn this as a language, sign language.
Right.
Yeah. She's emphasizing it, and she's saying, please, please, you should learn. Yes, yes, okay.
Thank you so much, Kavita. Next, we have Mr. Manish and Mrs. Saloni with us. Manish Lakshmanan is from Pune and is a travel and mobility consultant. He met his better half and his life companion Saloni while working at Thomas Cook. They are now happily married for 15 years. Manish has epilepsy, born a blue baby, and was convulsing till the age of 6 months, after which it stopped. This came up again at the age of 18 and was very powerful. But with the help from his doctors and help from the family, he was able to get back to some normalcy. Yes, he is living a normal life like everyone without any health problems. What really helped him through his married life was Saloni accepting him with epilepsy. He informed her family before proposing and told her that if she had any concern, he was willing to call it off. But Saloni said yes, and her father supported her. He has had some attacks during their married life, and for Saloni, these were a real scare because things like this were experienced by her for the first time in her life. Now, over the years, she has grown stronger and can now fight any situation alone. Manish's message to us today is life after epilepsy is not a full stop. You have more to it. Live it to its fullest, and you must always discuss and share all that you feel and have with your loved ones and your medics to keep you safe. I think it is very commendable, sir, for you informing Saloni about your condition before marrying her. Because the typical Indian would have, the kind of mentality is always शादी के बाद सुधर जाएगा, सब ठीक हो जाएगा. But the fact is, someone has to pay the price for it. And I've seen too many people who hide this fact of their child's condition so that the special needs adult can get married, or it can pass on the responsibilities to someone else. We live in a culture that once you're married, it's 7 janam ke liye and 7 lifetimes, and basically you're stuck in it. So yes, tell us about your journey, sir.
Okay. What happened was as I mentioned, I put the whole thing in a nutshell in the first part itself. I introduced in my introduction. I mentioned whatever I had and how it was. As a kid, when I studied, when I was schooling, everything was fine. Till suddenly, one fine day, while coming back from college, I had an attack, and we were all at a loss. Like, where did this come up from? And life was virtually at a standstill from upwards in college. So college on for about nearly 10 years, I was just kind of half in bed and half in college. Then, with help from home and everything, slowly things came back to normal. Started working and support from more support from the family and the follow-up from doctors and all. I pushed myself, got to work. Then met Saloni at work, got married, and as I said, you have to you have to tell the person in front. You have to make yourself strong, and you have to tell the person in front that you have to be honest. You hide every fact. The person across is going to be when they see it in front. She was shattered. I mean, even though she knew about it, she was so scared. She wouldn't know what to. She didn't know what to do. And the typical Indian attitude, the Indian thought process is that इसको क्या हो गया है? Even when it happens to a person on the road, I have seen when a person has had a fit, and I've seen a case where it happened on Sassoon, in front of, at the Sassoon Road crossing. People just stand and watch. Nobody knows what to do exactly. They give a key in the hand, a keychain. These are not the things that you do. What you try to do is try to stop the person from having his tongue go back inside his throat or put him to the side. These are things which you do. You don't. The tongue is the part of the body which heals the fastest. So he can even be put to the side. Even if he bites and it bleeds, it's fine. It will heal up. But don't let it roll back into his throat for him to choke on it. And Saloni, okay, the part that is there, Saloni's dad was most most accommodating to the fact that yes, he's epileptic and he's accepted it, and that he's going to be looking after my daughter is the most accepting fact. That is what was really accepted by them, and I was really thankful to them about it. Unfortunately, we don't have kids, but yes, we are living very well together. We're doing well together. She's working it out. Any questions you all have?
Yes, yes. Uh, it would be more for Saloni.
Right.
Yes, Saloni. How or what made you take on this responsibility? I know love is blind and all that, that's all nice. But when you see somebody with convulsions, it brings you back down to earth.
So, we've gone a long way now. It's been two decades of knowing each other, and I always found him to be a wonderful person, and his qualities appealed to me. His honesty, his simplicity appealed to me, and I had support from my family. Uh, there were a few traditional old thinking relatives, not old thinking, but the kind of how do you say orthodox, a bit orthodox. For them, one part of the family said, "You're Gujarati. He's half Malayali, half Bengali. How will you manage? Your eating habits are different. There's a 7-year gap between the two of you, so you all could have a difference in opinion." There were so many reasons, but I was convinced after about 2.5 years of dating that he was the one for me. Of course, our courtship lasted 4 years, and he was very honest about his epilepsy. And I must tell you this: what overwhelms me is he accepts it as a shortcoming, but I am severely asthmatic. But he never talks about my problems. So he was as accepting about my asthma as I was about his epilepsy. The only thing is when we were dating, I mean, I was fortunate to not see him go through a convulsion, and somewhere I would, in my prayers, request God, to not let me see one, and probably things would change after, we get married. But you've got to be practical. And the first time after marriage, when he had an attack, I just didn't know what to do. I ran into my mom-in-law's room and I said, "Ma, please come. I don't know what's happening to him." And I cried all night. I just didn't know how to handle it. But then I read up about it, and he's been treated by very good doctors. So eventually I started to deal with it. But every time he goes through it, I am numb for the first few minutes. Even now, even though I've seen it for the last 15 years, the first few minutes I'm totally numb. But I calm myself down and I'm okay because I know I'm going to deal with it. So he helped me deal with it, and his strength really inspired me to get along with my routine. He'd just get back to work in 2 days, and he'd say that's life, and you've just got to move on and then stop brooding over these issues. So he's very strong, and that helped me a lot. And my mother-in-law's strength also really saw me through all his seizures. So I'm really thankful to her for all the strength she's given me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Sorry,
Yeah, we
we didn't
can.
get the
We couldn't
question.
let you.
Okay. Um, what is the biggest challenge you faced in your marriage life besides epilepsy?
Um, it's been 15 years since we've married. The fact that I could never conceive was a big problem with me. Manish was very accepting and accommodating. No one in the family put pressure on us, to be parents. We're the only couple from the entire family, be it my mom's side, my dad's side, or Manish's side. We're the only married couple that doesn't have a kid. And to me, that has been a challenge, and I'm yet to overcome that. Although I'm gradually, becoming more accepting about it, but it does bother me.
Okay. So, what according to you was the key ingredient that kept you all together for so many years?
Sorry?
What was the key ingredient in your marriage that kept you all together for so many years?
Well,
Well, despite all our differences, I think we love each other. So our love for each other really helps us overcome all our
Everybody.
differences. I can't be angry with him for more than a few minutes, I think. He's a wonderful person.
Even if I yell at her, I get back and I apologize the first thing then.
And Karen, I must say this: he is actually the most loved son-in-law. I mean, he's not a son-in-law to my parents; he's a son. My father, unfortunately, is no more. But then we three siblings. We two sisters and a brother. But my father actually would say, "I have two daughters and two sons." So to me, that was a very defining moment. And my mom is extremely attached to him, and the entire family is extremely appreciative of the person that he is, and he's very loved, by almost every member of the family. Not almost, I think by every member of the family. And he's a wonderful person. So we all have our shortcomings, but otherwise, he's a wonderful son, a lovely husband, a lovely son-in-law, a brother-in-law, a mama. I mean, every relationship of his. I mean, he puts his heart and soul into it. So.
How wonderful. I think that is a special ingredient
The
of all
person that
special people. Yes.
I wish I had really that.
We have our differences though, but yeah.
I'm sure you do. Yeah. No, but the fact is that there is so much understanding and acceptance. I think it weighs much more than anything else. And yes, Saloni, as not being a person with special needs yourself and being married to a person with special needs, it speaks volumes about you yourself. What is your message to the special needs community?
I think just follow your heart. Problems are going to be there. Yeah, that's all. I mean, I don't really know what more to say. Just because I followed my heart, and I am blessed to have a lovely companion. So, yeah, just follow your heart and do what you feel is right, and you'll get the strength. It all, yeah, it all, you just get stronger automatically. So
It all fits in place.
yeah, it all falls.
You have things to do it, the will to do it, you will do it. And it happens. It works. It works right. You both understand. You both work it out right, and it just works correct. It works right for both of you. And with mutual understanding on how to go about it, you can always work everything out. Because finally, it's just a group of people who are living. It's just a group of people who are going to be living together. And the people around who are all giving all that gyan are not going to be eventually coming next door, coming in front of you and doing all that. That gyan matna, what they do, is not going to be coming in the way of your daily life. The two of you are the ones who are going to be living together. That's one part. The other part, what I also wanted to share here is what I missed on is basically when parents are bringing up a child, let's say a child with special needs. Uh, don't miss out on what the child has. Like in the case where a child has special needs, don't don't feel that he is just because he is only a child with special needs that you miss out on the wrongs of the child also. Don't oversee that. Look at him holistically. Look at him both in the bring him up completely as a normal child. So treat him both ways. See both the left and the right. So what happens in some cases is that the parent looks at the child as, oh, he he has to be shelled, he has to be covered and shelled, taken care of. So even whatever wrong he's done also is overseen. Right?
I personally think uh, people with special needs can just lead a very normal life, and we've seen such a wonderful example of uncle and auntie, and
that was a lovely
it was so touching,
really
it
love
was
that.
so overwhelming. Just listening to them, kind of got me choked. They're so full of life, and even normal people don't have this zest for life, and it's wonderful to see them like this. And I'm sure listening to them, really is going to take me a long way emotionally. And I think people with special needs can definitely lead a normal life as long as society does not differentiate between them and the so-called, abled people. I think if society is more accepting, it will just make their journey, more beautiful. And they're such a source of inspiration to us. And it's just so overwhelmed that we got to see them today and listen. To get to know about their journey. So it's really overwhelming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manish. Thank you, Saloni. You all are an inspiration to a lot of people too. Thank you so much. To give us a down-to-earth and pragmatic outlook on special needs and marriage, we have with us Ms. Medha Tengche. 1 minute. Medha ma'am is an MA, MPhil, Bachelor of Journalism. She has worked as a lecturer, sub-editor and freelancer for Marathi periodicals, founder member and initiator for the following organizations: Satya Shodh, Satara, Rachna Society for Social Reconstruction, Pune, Sadhana Village, Pune. now completely dedicated to the work and cause of Sadhana Village as a residential trustee, program director, and house mother. Working for the rehabilitation of people with special needs adults by running residential home for them in a very novel way. Working with and for rural women, children, and people with all disabilities in 19 villages in their project area, Kolvan Valley, Mulchi Block, Pune district, for their empowerment, development, and upliftment. Both the activities have been running since 1994. Medha ma'am has been working in the rehabilitation field of people with disabilities since 1986, which also includes 4 years of experience working with visually impaired group and trying to create a platform to help them, people with disabilities, to raise their own voice, offering them a face to help them to fight for their own issues, fundamental rights jointly. Yes, ma'am. Please do give us your take on special needs adults and marriages from an institution point of view.
Thank you very much, Karan ma'am. Good evening, dear friends. I'm intentionally using the word friends because we are sailing in same boat and also fellow travelers. My experience is mostly restricted to the people with special needs adults. That means especially intellectually challenged group and up to certain extent mentally challenged group too. So mentally retarded people and mentally challenged group. I should say that whenever we speak about this topic, there is a lot of taboo to this topic, to talk about sexual desires of the people with special needs. But as all of we know that like so-called normal people, people with special needs, they are also having this sort of need. And it's really nice to recognize it. First of all, I should say that when you think about this, just have a right approach, a right perspective, and with healthy, sort of thinking. I do remember that people always, some people, especially when they are related to these special friends, they tease them and do ask me some questions. They ask, Madam, this child or special person, we call a child as with love, he doesn't understand anything, but how does he have sexual desires? I said, why not? It's very natural, it's very human. And so, but it's very difficult for our society to accept it. And that's why I'll say that while discussing about this issue, please be in their shoe. Be sensitive as much as possible. And be attentive to hear them, what they meant to be, what they would like to express. That's why whenever any special person, intellectually challenged person, displays his sexual desires, we have to be very sensitive and we have to be very cautious about. I would like to ask you all who are having a similar experience, what exactly happened when your special child turned into either in puberty or teenage, when expressed his sexual desire in a group, especially mixed group or big group, what did you exactly felt? Did you feel embarrassing? Did you feel very helpless, frustrated? Did you get angry? Did you get annoyed? You will be surprised that how do you know about this, madam? I should say that I am actually, I have gone through this experience many times. Being a founder member of this organization, also residential trustee, I'm also a house mother of the house. I have gone through this experience many times. And I remember one event, rather one occasion, when I went through really very difficult situation. I remember that occasion that once we had a visitor and we were welcoming them at our office. I remember one special person who is severely retarded person, challenging person. He was in an office and he was touching his private parts. They arrived and I felt very embarrassed. I thought that how I can deal with this. What shall I do? I felt very helpless at that moment. But then I told the person, I took his name, I don't want to disclose it, and I told him to go to your room or bathroom. But he didn't accept it. Then what we did, that we changed our, approach and attitude. We just allowed him the way he was, and we started our discussion. And afterwards, he himself left the room and he went to his room. And I was really worrying that what will the people say? They will say that, oh, in this organization, anything can happen. People allow that. They might make a mockery of us. So I was a bit upset. But fortunately, they were parents of special child, so they could understand that. But I learned a lot of lesson out of it. I decided that I should just train the special person, not only this person, but many people. So for that, I decided that I will try to change myself rather than a special person. I will request you the same to you all. You know that special people, intellectually challenged group, they can't manipulate. They don't have masks. They can't hide their feelings, or they can't have control on their emotions. So we are the people around them. We have to take cognizance of it, and we have to deal with accordingly. So whenever any special person express or displays his sexual sexual expression, then how we should look at it? Before going to the concept of marriage, I should say that let us see the situation as it is. Whether the person feels that is ignored by parents or people like us at our organization, or does he feel that he is not getting love? That could be one possibility. Another thing, that whenever the special person in family, it also happens there is a comparison between siblings. And is he been treated a little inferior way, or he has been ignored more, sidelined? That should be also taken into consideration. And that's why he just wants to have his attention in negative way from us. That's one of the possibilities. And another thing is that when there is a decision of marriage takes in family of other siblings, people around special person starts actually teasing him or her. Oh, now he's getting married, let us have your marriage also. That also makes him upset. It more goes towards, displaying his sexual feelings, unknowingly or knowingly. And that should be actually a point where we should be aware of. So apart from these 4 or 5 reasons, of course, there is a basic feeling of sexual desires. And I have to tell you very firmly that like every normal person, special persons also are having a right, actually fundamental human right to have sexual desires and to display or express them. Point is different, where that we have to just provide him or her privacy, a closed space, and also we have to talk to him or her how to display his or how to have his own time for his catharsis. So what I mean to say that don't go for denial, go for allowing him as he is, allow him or her rather, and allow them to have their own sexual expression, but only at private places, only in protected places, because there is also a sort of risk that some people who are just uh, witnessing this, some of them can have bad intention to exploit the opportunity. And so special person can be exploited, can be a victim in many ways. So what I'll say that let us accept first as a parent, as an organizational head, that it is a fundamental right of special person to have sexual desires and have a right also to express them properly. Another thing I would say that how their sexual expression or desires can be have a different sort of streams. What I mean to say that, is it possible that we do at our place? I am proud to say that people still ask that how come you are having houses with mixed group at one place? I say, why not? Because we are having sisters and brothers at same place, in same house. Then why do you object? On the contrary, I do feel that if both the sexes, male and female, they are together at one place, they can enjoy each other's company, they can feel more comfortable to be together rather than preventing them to be together. At our place, apart from, sleeping arrangement, because they are having separate rooms, of course, but they are together most of the time. They work together, they eat together, they are having fun together, like dance, music, various therapies. We do it, we allow them to do together. That always helps. So what I feel that if you just want to go through these all sort of, streaming their feelings, desires, they can go in proper direction. Instead of controlling them, you have to coordinate them. Instead of just saying no, 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 we have to accept, we have to coordinate, we have to allow them to just having it in proper channelization and to just accepting that to sort it out. So I would say that why shouldn't we go for companionship then? We always feel that there can be best option for marriage is companionship. And companionship can be more feasible or viable because the special people, intellectually challenged group, their feelings, emotions are not always in their own control. They are having emotional, low emotional quotient. They are having sometimes no mask, as I told you before. And also they can't control their anger, sometimes frustration. And at that time, if companionship can be more possibly worked out and can be possible under the able supervision. So I'll say that companionship will give them enjoyment, then fun, also sort of some catharsis of sexual desires within limit, and but still they don't have to take every responsibility on their own. So everything will be in limits, but that will also help to have fun, enjoyment. Even that will help to have lessening the violence, aggression, and the same will lead their life towards fulfillment. So, as far as today's times are concerned, I'll say that to have companionship provided by trained staff will be the right option for them. And for that, I'll say that we should take the help of psychiatrists, counselors, psychologists to guide us. At the same time, I'll say that we should also approach government for right sort of policies. Actually, this is the group who is at the bottom of the social structure. I always say that when we think of Indian social structure, people with all disabilities are at the bottom. And amongst them, who is at the bottom again? Then I should say that people with intellectually challenged and also people with mental illness, they are at the bottom. They are most actually neglected, and they are the most people who are denied always from their fundamental rights. So what we can do, we can come together, we can join the hands even from the all people with all disabilities together. We can create a excuse me, we can create the forum for them to raise their voice, to fulfill their fundamental rights. And for that, we need to actually approach the government and request the governments to have sort of colonies for people with intellectual challenge group, especially borderline cases, slow learner cases. There can be colonies for living as companions. There can be small sort of apartments for them who can be supervised, and people can be having enjoyment under shelter home. Because as far as I know, to have individual couples staying alone in a society, even in West, either in Europe or United States, has not succeeded much, because these people need support, balance in emotional behavior, social behavior. They need always support. And for that, we have to have support on organizational level, because parents always think what will happen after me, especially for my child. Then how can they take another burden of their child's or son or daughter's partner? So let us think that way. And I'll say that if they are not able to take the responsibility of, we should also think of having sterilization, where the responsibility of having possibility of children will not be for them to take care of, but at the same time, they can enjoy sexual desire up to certain extent within limits, and they can have really fulfilling life in every sense. So I'm really happy that in earlier interviews, these two couples could succeed because they didn't have a problem of having lack of control of emotions, intellectual weakness, or even they didn't have the problem of how to coordinate their own emotions and to behave balanced way. So they could succeed. I highly appreciate and I congratulate these two couples, and there could be many more too. So I humbly feel that they have really achieved a lot. But with people with intellectually challenged group and also mentally challenged group like mental illness group, they need lot of supervision, even to their lead to their own life. Then for companionship, it is really needed to have support, safeguarding, and also supervision. So let us join the hands for going one step ahead and have may not be with our generation, but with next generation, there can be possibility of having companionship freely available to our special sons or daughters. And I also feel that somebody should take one step ahead, then others follow it. Then why can't we should be the initiators for this project to go ahead? I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And shall we join again, or shall we meet again to join the hands to succeed this project, to talk to government and to have companionship sort of colony for people with special needs adults to live life fulfilling. Thank you very much again, Ms.
you.
Karen, for helping and for allowing me to talk to my experiences and also my way of thinking. This was sort of loud thinking, and I hope that all of you will think about and let us join the hands again for the same venture sometime in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. That was so enlightening and a lot of food for thought, and definitely there has to be some future to this. So thank you. We had one more participant. Unfortunately, a little child is unwell today. Otherwise, we had one more couple here with us today. Maybe another time they would join us. So yes, as we as parents of children with special needs are always hopeful that there is someone out there who just might accept a child for who they are and just the way they are. I am not running away from reality, but why can't we be hopeful? So should special needs people marry? My answer is that I'm sure there are individuals with mental disabilities and challenges who shouldn't make such a commitment, but no individual or couple should be talked out of being together just because of what we so-called normal people think or believe. The decision to form a marriage, a partnership, relationship should be left up to the special couple and the people who support them. I do believe that the ways of the universe are mysterious and bring people together when we least expect it. We all have a purpose on this earth to fulfill, and so do our children with special needs. So thank you all once again, and thank you for having being with us on this show. And all the very best to you, Manish and Saloni. God bless you both. And all the very best, Rina ma'am. You have our support. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.